Hey there, happy writers. Welcome to Branding 101, Day 3. Today we're talking about clarifying your message and finding confidence in your brand's voice. Now, as we go through these workshops and these modules, you're probably going to feel like some of it is a little bit repetitive. And if you feel like that, don't just glance over the material, because I want to ask you, how many times have you bought something or done something and in a little while found out it's not what you thought it was? Or how many times have you created something and then tweaked it? And just like your manuscript has a first draft, your branding might have a first draft. Whereas you work through this, you understand that what you thought you were isn't what you need to represent in your brand. So today's quote opens up by Simon Mainwaring, and it says, "The keys to brand success are self-definition, transparency, authenticity, and accountability. All of these support your brand voice." So this is a wonderful quote, and I want you all to really work on your self-definition, your transparency, your authenticity, and your accountability in representing yourself to your readers. So the key elements of voice are really important, and your voice does serve a purpose. It's not just how you're talking, but it's also why you're talking and who you're talking to and what you're talking about and the language that you're using and the inflectuation that you use and how it relates to your audience and everything else. So a lot of people think that branding is solely about giving yourself a logo and picking out a few pretty colors that you might like, but it's so much deeper than that. So your voice serves a purpose, and it should reinforce your beliefs, show who you are without saying who you are, retain your readers, and you should also use your voice to avoid clickbait, bait and switch scenarios with your readers. So that transparency really comes into play here, because if you're connecting with your reader, you don't need to trick them. Think of how many times you've clicked on something and been like, "Ugh, this is not what I clicked on." And this happens to me all the time on YouTube, where I look at a thumbnail and then the thumbnail is completely photoshopped and has nothing to do with the video, and I get so mad. So the one in here that's probably going to be really tricky is that your voice should show who you are without saying who you are. And you're probably thinking, but my voice doesn't show anything, and it's oral. People are hearing, so therefore I am saying. And to some degree you are right, but what this means is you shouldn't say, "I'm fun and witty and outgoing." The way that you speak to them should show that you're fun and witty and outgoing. With your brand, you should never have to tell somebody, "I am this." You should never have to look them in the face and say, "I am this." They should look at you and know that's who you are. And that's why we really have to define that voice. So part of defining your voice is also maintaining your voice, and this is consistency. And this is another reason why we're approaching these subjects multiple times, because the more times you talk about them and the deeper you dive into them, the more you support that idea. Just like a habit takes 28 days to build, understanding your voice and understanding your brand and realizing how that supports you and knowing that it supports you might take a few times to go through it and to get it in. So we're doing consistency in the training by approaching topics broadly and then breaking them down. And you need to do the same thing when you're developing your brand and finding the way to support your hard work. So anytime that you're using your voice, you want to make sure that you're always replying with the same context and tone, whether it's in emails, whether it's in social media, whether it's in your blogs, whether it's on your website, etc. So those who work with me closely know that in our Slack channels, we're a little bit more lax, and I am the LOL queen, and it drives me nuts. It really does, but it's a habit, and it's been a habit that I've had to break on my social media to not put the LOLs out there. And I think a lot of this comes from having communications where you're not able to have that body language. So body language makes up 80% of our communication. And so when you're talking online, you have to do all of this within 20% of your capabilities. So for me, I actually have a fear of offending someone because I'm very sarcastic and I'm very sort of like witty and dry with my humor, and I really fly off the cuff and twist things around sometimes, which doesn't necessarily match everything else, and that's also not for everyone. So I LOL with everything. Learning my brand voice has actually helped me with this quite a bit, and it's also taken out my need to LOL with everything on public forums, but in private forums, I still really struggle with this. So when I'm on Happy Writing, for example, I try to not LOL so much, and I try to keep our uplifting, fun, outgoing, supportive, encouraging messages through all of my conversations. Because if I'm doing these really uplifting posts on Facebook, but then I'm over on Twitter, like just being a sarcastic donkey, then